You ever find yourself scrolling through your news feed and just pausing, thinking, is this actually what's happening, or is there like something else going on behind the scenes?
Oh, definitely.
It can feel like we're drinking from a fire hose of information
Right.
and figuring out what's true. Well, it can be a real head scratcher.
It's a valid question. I mean, the digital age has given us just unprecedented access to information, but yeah, that also means we're navigating a much more complex and sometimes murky landscape.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today on the deep dive. We've got a fascinating guide for our exploration, the book Trust Me, I'm Lying by Ryan Holiday.
A holiday, yes.
Now, this isn't your typical media analysis. Holiday used to be a media manipulator. He was the guy pulling some of those strings.
Right. He was inside the machine.
So think of this as us getting an insider's look at the, let's say, sneaky ways the internet news ecosystem really functions, straight from someone who was, in the engine room.
It offers a uniquely insightful perspective, doesn't it? Holiday's experience allows him to illuminate the often unseen mechanisms that drive online news, revealing the underlying pressures and tactics at play.
Exactly.
Understanding these dynamics is just essential for anyone wanting to be a savvy consumer of digital information.
Absolutely. Because whether you're prepping for a crucial business meeting, trying to get a handle on a rapidly evolving field, or just, naturally curious about the world around you,
Uh-huh.
being able to critically assess online information is more vital than ever. So, over our time together today, we're going to unpack 7 key secrets based on Holiday's firsthand experiences and observations. Consider it your shortcut to understanding the inner workings of the internet news machine.
And hopefully equipping you with some powerful tools to navigate that machine more effectively.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, here's the roadmap for our deep dive today. We'll be exploring secret #1, little blogs, big news.
Interesting.
Secret #2, turning nothing into something big. Secret #3, how websites make money and why it matters to you.
Ah, the economics.
Yeah.
Crucial.
Secret #4, the tricks they use to grab your attention.
The manipulative side.
Secret #5, when things go wrong, really wrong.
Consequences.
Secret #6, oops, did they get it wrong? Maybe not. Which is fascinating.
The correction myth.
And finally, secret #7, becoming a super smart newsreader.
Bringing it all together for the listener.
Ready to pull back the first layer of the onion and see what's underneath.
I can do it.
Let's dive into our first secret, little blogs, big news.
Yeah, it's fascinating how these small online outposts can act as early detectors for broader trends because they're often so hyper-focused.
Right.
They can spot emerging narratives before the mainstream even notices, almost like the internet's early warning system.
Exactly. Holiday explains how these smaller niche blogs can be the initial spark for news stories that eventually get picked up and amplified by much larger news organizations. Think of it less like a perfectly orchestrated campaign and more like a ripple effect. Something starts small, gains a little momentum, and then those bigger waves start to form.
It really highlights the interconnected nature of the digital information environment, doesn't it? What originates in a relatively obscure corner of the internet can indeed spread outwards, gaining traction and visibility as it's discovered and shared by increasingly larger platforms.
Now, for you listening, grasping this little blog's big news idea can actually be a real advantage, especially if you're running a business or trying to get a particular message out into the world.
Precisely. Understanding this dynamic can unlock some, well, significant opportunities.
For starters, if you're trying to generate buzz about something, a new product launch, a significant achievement, whatever it might be, you don't necessarily need to aim straight for the front page of a national newspaper.
Right. That's a tough nut to crack immediately.
You can strategically start by sharing your story with smaller, specialized blogs that your ideal audience actually reads, if it resonates within those communities.
Yeah.
The bigger websites might just take notice and pick it up, giving you a huge boost in visibility without an enormous initial outlay.
It's about laser-focused targeting. Niche blogs often cultivate highly engaged readers who are deeply interested in specific subject areas. Capturing their attention can create a groundswell of interest
Groundswell, yeah.
that larger outlets then recognize as newsworthy.
And getting your name or your company mentioned on multiple online platforms, even if they're small to begin with, can really build up your credibility over time.
Definitely.
It's like having multiple endorsements, which makes you look more legitimate and trustworthy in the eyes of potential customers or partners.
It establishes a form of distributed validation. Each mention, regardless of the platform's initial reach, contributes to a broader online presence and can enhance your perceived authority within your field.
Plus, these smaller platforms can be a fantastic low-stakes environment to test the waters. Got a new marketing angle you're unsure about? Try it out on a smaller blog and see how their audience responds before you invest heavily in a larger campaign.
It offers a valuable space for experimentation and gathering early feedback. You can refine your messaging and gauge public interest before committing to a wider launch or a, more significant marketing push.
But here's where it gets interesting. If you don't understand this, you could be missing out on some key opportunities.
Right. The consequences.
You might pour all your resources into trying to land coverage at those massive national news outlets right off the bat, which is incredibly difficult, especially when you're just starting out.
Yeah, you're bypassing the steps.
You'll overlook the easier wins and the chance to build that crucial initial momentum.
It's a common pitfall to underestimate the power of grassroots online engagement. Solely focusing on the most prominent platforms can mean missing out on valuable early exposure and the chance to cultivate a dedicated following within your target demographic.
And you might end up allocating your marketing budget to less effective broad reach methods, like generic online advertising.
Which can be a money pit.
Exactly. When a well-placed story on a relevant niche blog could have a much more significant impact on the specific people you're trying to reach.
Targeted outreach to specific online communities can often deliver a much higher return on investment than broad, untargeted campaigns. It's about connecting with the right audience in the spaces where they are already actively engaged.
Ultimately, if you neglect these smaller online spaces, potential customers or clients who are actively seeking information in those areas might never even hear about you. You'll be invisible.
Invisible, yeah.
In the very places they're looking.
In today's digital landscape, a lack of presence on even smaller, focused online platforms can significantly limit your visibility to potential customers who are actively seeking information within those specific communities.
So, what are some concrete ways that companies, say, in the USA, actually leverage this little blog's big news strategy? How do they do it?
Well, we see several effective approaches in practice.
Okay, like what?
One common tactic is strategically seeding stories to industry-specific blogs. When a company launches a new product or achieves a noteworthy milestone, they'll often proactively share press releases and detailed information directly with the smaller online publications that cater to that particular sector.
Right, going straight to the interested parties.
Exactly. This ensures the news reaches the most relevant audience first. It's about speaking directly to the individuals who are most likely to be interested and influential within a specific industry. These blogs often have a highly engaged and knowledgeable readership that trusts their expertise.
Makes sense. What else?
Another increasingly popular strategy is partnering with smaller niche influencers.
Ah, influencers, not just the big names.
No, these aren't necessarily celebrity endorsements. They're collaborations with individuals who have a dedicated following within a specific area of interest. Their blog posts and social media mentions can carry significant weight within that community, and as we've discussed, can sometimes garner the attention of larger media outlets. Micro-influencers in particular often cultivate very strong and authentic connections with their followers. Their recommendations can feel more genuine.
More trustworthy, maybe.
Precisely. And carry considerable influence within their specific communities.
Interesting. Anything else on strategy?
And finally, many companies are creating genuinely newsworthy content. Things like original research reports, in-depth guides, or insightful analyses.
Stuff people actually want to read.
Exactly. Content that smaller blogs would genuinely want to feature because it provides value to their readers. It's less about blatant self-promotion and more about offering something of substance.
Okay, providing real value.
Content that provides genuine value, whether it's data-driven insights, practical advice, or expert analysis, is much more likely to be shared and referenced by smaller, reputable blogs seeking to inform their audience.
Now, on the flip side, what mistakes do we often see competitors making by not understanding or utilizing these strategies?
Unfortunately, quite a few costly errors are pretty common.
Such as?
For one, many companies remain fixated on trying to secure coverage in major national news publications. completely overlooking the valuable and often more engaged audiences that these niche blogs have cultivated.
Just aiming too high too soon.
It's a classic case of aiming for the top tier prematurely and missing the more accessible and often more targeted opportunities available at the grassroots level of online media.
Okay, what else?
They also might not actively engage with these smaller bloggers and journalists. They adopt a passive approach, waiting for news outlets to discover them.
Which rarely happens, right?
Let's be honest, rarely happens, especially for newer or smaller businesses trying to break through the noise. Proactive outreach is essential. Building relationships with journalists and bloggers at all levels is crucial for getting your story heard. You can't simply wait for coverage to materialize. You need to actively cultivate those connections.
Right, you have to make it happen.
And a significant misstep is creating generic or overly promotional content that doesn't resonate with the specific interests of these smaller blogs or their readers.
Just sending out the same old press release to everyone.
Exactly. They're looking for targeted, relevant information and insightful perspectives, not just a thinly veiled sales pitch. Niche blogs cater to specific interests and needs. Generic, promotional content will simply fail to capture their attention or provide value to their audience, making it unlikely to be featured.
So for you, the listener, how can you take this principle of little blogs, big news, and apply it to your own path to success? What's the takeaway?
The core takeaway is to adopt a strategic, ground-up approach to building your online presence and getting your message heard.
Exactly. Identify the online communities and blogs that your target audience frequents. Aim to get your expertise, your story, or your product featured in those spaces first.
Start there.
Offer them something exclusive, a unique perspective, early access to information, valuable data. Once you start generating those initial mentions and that initial buzz, it becomes significantly easier to attract the attention of larger players in your industry. Think of it as building momentum step by step, like climbing a ladder one rung at a time.
It's a gradual, but often more sustainable process of building visibility and establishing credibility within your specific market. Don't underestimate the cumulative power of those initial, seemingly small steps.
All right, let's move on to our second secret. And this is where things can get really interesting, sometimes in a good way, sometimes. Well, we'll get to that. It's all about turning nothing into something big.
Yes, this is a fascinating and at times a somewhat concerning aspect of how information propagates online.
So the fundamental idea here, as Ryan Holiday lays it out, is how a small, sometimes even unsubstantiated or completely fabricated piece of information can travel upwards through the online ecosystem.
Creating up the chain, he calls it.
Exactly. Moving from tiny, relatively unknown blogs to increasingly larger and more prominent websites, eventually gaining a perceived legitimacy simply through repeated exposure. Each time it's picked up by a more significant platform, it acquires this, veneer of importance, even if its original source was questionable at best. It's like a digital version of that old game of telephone.
Amplified massively.
But amplified by the incredible speed and reach of the internet.
Precisely. The aggregation model that dominates much of online news consumption contributes significantly to this phenomenon. Smaller, less scrupulous sites might pick up a fleeting rumor from an even more obscure source, and then slightly larger sites aggregate from those, and so on.
And the original context gets lost.
Completely. With each step in this chain, the initial information can become increasingly distorted, and any crucial context or caveats can be completely lost.
Now, for your business, understanding this trading up the chain effect can actually be a surprisingly powerful tool if you use it strategically.
Indeed, when leveraged thoughtfully and ethically.
If you can get even a small piece of positive news or a compelling story about your company to be featured on a slightly more visible website or even a social media account with a decent following.
Right, that initial placement.
It has the potential to snowball into much wider coverage than you might have initially thought possible.
It's about strategically leveraging the interconnectedness of the digital space to amplify your message organically. A small initial spark can indeed ignite a larger fire of online attention.
And this can be a remarkably cost-effective way to gain significant attention compared to sinking a lot of money into traditional advertising campaigns.
Oh, absolutely.
You're essentially riding the natural wave of online information sharing.
Earned media, which is essentially what this is, often carries significantly more weight and credibility with consumers than paid advertising. When your story is being shared and picked up organically, it feels more authentic and trustworthy.
Plus, the more diverse online platforms that mention your company, the more authoritative and trustworthy you can appear to potential customers or partners. It's like social proof on steroids,
Builds that perception.
reinforcing your legitimacy across the digital landscape.
The cumulative effect of multiple mentions across various online platforms can substantially enhance your brand's visibility and build trust through sheer repetition and broader exposure.
But here's the crucial flip side. If you don't understand this trading up dynamic, there can be some real downsides.
Always a flip side.
You might dismiss mentions of your company on small, relatively unknown websites as completely insignificant, failing to recognize their potential to actually grow and spread.
It's a mistake to underestimate the long tail of online content. Mentions on even seemingly insignificant platforms can contribute to the overall online narrative surrounding your brand and potentially be discovered and amplified by larger sites down the line.
And this is absolutely critical. If a negative or even a completely false story originates on a small, obscure blog, and you ignore it because it seems inconsequential,
Thinking, oh, nobody reads that.
right, it could potentially trade up the chain and rapidly become a much larger and more difficult problem to manage later on.
Early detection and proactive engagement are absolutely crucial when it comes to negative information online. Ignoring a small initial issue can allow it to fester and escalate as it gains wider traction and visibility.
You might also be missing out on opportunities to significantly expand your reach simply by not actively trying to bring positive mentions on smaller outlets to the attention of slightly larger or more influential platforms.
Yeah, not fanning the flames, so to speak.
Exactly. It's about actively nurturing that initial spark of positive coverage.
It's about being proactive in amplifying your positive stories and making it as easy as possible for them to travel further within the online ecosystem.
So, what are some specific strategies that companies in the USA employ to leverage this turning nothing into something big idea to their advantage? How do they make this work for them?
Several effective approaches are commonly used. One frequently used tactic is crafting highly strategic press releases. These aren't just dry announcements, they focus on having a compelling hook or an intriguing angle that is inherently likely to get picked up by smaller news aggregators and industry blogs in the first place.
Making it juicy, basically.
Exactly. It's all about making it easy and appealing for them to share your news. A well-crafted press release with a genuinely newsworthy narrative and compelling elements is essential for breaking through the constant online noise and capturing the initial attention of smaller online outlets.
Okay, strategic press releases. What else?
Cultivating strong relationships with journalists at all levels, from those working at small local blogs to reporters at major national publications, is also a key strategy.
Building that network.
Yes. These connections significantly increase the chances of your stories being shared and amplified upwards through the online information food chain. Building and nurturing a network of media contacts, regardless of the size or reach of their platform, can substantially improve your chances of securing coverage and having your stories amplified across a wider range of outlets.
And the content itself.
And then there's the undeniable power of creating highly shareable content. Things like visually engaging infographics, short informative videos, or even interactive quizzes.
Stuff people actually share on social media.
Right. This type of content is easily embeddable and shareable, which encourages smaller websites to feature it, potentially leading to larger, more prominent sites discovering it and picking it up as well. Content that is visually appealing, easily digestible, and offers genuine value or entertainment has a much greater propensity to be shared and embedded across various online platforms, facilitating that trading up effect.
Now, what are some common mistakes that competitors often make when they fail to utilize these turning nothing into something big strategies effectively? Where do they trip up?
They frequently miss out on significant opportunities for organic growth and visibility, often in predictable ways.
Right?
A big one is focusing all their energy and resources on trying to land that one massive feature in a major newspaper or magazine.
The home run swing.
Right. Completely neglecting the often more accessible and potentially more effective route of starting with smaller publications and building momentum gradually. It's often a more realistic and ultimately more impactful strategy to build a solid foundation of coverage on smaller, more targeted platforms before aiming for the highly competitive landscape of major national media.
Okay, ignoring the small steps. What else?
They also might not actively monitor smaller blogs and online discussions related to their brand or their industry. This means they miss crucial opportunities to amplify positive mentions and address any negative ones before they gain significant traction and visibility. Ignoring the online conversation, even on smaller platforms, can be the costly oversight. Early engagement is absolutely crucial for proactively managing your brand narrative and addressing potential issues before they escalate.
And the message itself.
And if their initial message or story is weak, uninteresting, or just plain boring.
Snooze fest.
Exactly. It's highly unlikely to get picked up and traded up by other online outlets no matter how diligently they try to push it at the higher levels. A compelling and genuinely newsworthy message is the essential starting point. Without a strong initial hook, any efforts to amplify your story are likely to fall flat.
So for our listeners who are looking to leverage this principle, what's the key takeaway? How do they actually do this?
The key is to be proactive and to think strategically about how your message can naturally spread and gain momentum online.
Exactly. When you do receive a positive mention, don't just let it sit there passively. Actively share it.
Amplify it yourself.
Send it to slightly larger websites that might be interested. Reach out to relevant influencers. Make sure people who might want to share it further are aware of it. Make it as easy as possible for them to cover your story, provide readily available quotes, high-quality images, all the key info they might need.
Reduce the friction.
Yeah. Think of it like throwing a small pebble into a pond. Those initial ripples, if you actively encourage them, can grow surprisingly large.
It's about intentionally nurturing those early positive mentions and actively facilitating the spread of your positive narrative across the broader online landscape.
Okay, let's move on to our third secret. And this one really gets down to the financial engine that drives much of the internet. How websites make money and why it matters to you.
Ah, yes, the economics. Understanding the economic underpinnings of online news is absolutely essential for interpreting the information you encounter and recognizing potential biases.
Right. Ryan Holiday delves into something he aptly calls the blog con. And the core idea is that a vast number of websites rely heavily on generating high traffic numbers, those all-important clicks and page views.
Eyeballs.
Eyeballs, exactly, to generate revenue through online advertising. And this constant pressure to maximize clicks can, unfortunately, incentivize websites to prioritize sensational or clickbaity headlines and stories, even if it means compromising accuracy or presenting a skewed perspective.
The advertising-driven business model creates a powerful inherent incentive, doesn't it, for websites to prioritize content that is most likely to attract a large volume of clicks, regardless of its factual integrity or overall journalistic quality. It's just the reality of the system.
Now, for you and your business, understanding this fundamental aspect of how online media operates can provide some really valuable insights.
It offers crucial context for interpreting media coverage related to your industry or your own company. Really helps you read between the lines.
For instance, knowing that many online outlets are primarily driven by the need to generate clicks helps you understand why they might be particularly interested in certain types of stories about your business.
Why they choose that angle.
Exactly. Things that are surprising, controversial, or evoke strong emotions are often more likely to generate those valuable clicks.
Understanding these underlying economic incentives allows you to better anticipate the types of narratives that might gain traction and to strategically frame your own communications accordingly.
You can also learn to craft headlines for your own online content that are genuinely attention-grabbing without resorting to deliberately misleading or manipulative clickbait tactics.
Finding that balance.
You want people to click and engage with your content, but you also want to deliver on the promise of your headline and build trust with your audience.
Crafting effective headlines that strike a balance between intrigue and accuracy is a vital skill in the online environment. The goal is to attract attention and drive engagement without resorting to deceptive or unethical clickbait strategies. It's a fine line sometimes.
And understanding the various ways that websites generate traffic, whether it's primarily through search engine optimization, SEO, social media referrals, or direct visits from loyal readers, can significantly inform your own advertising and marketing strategies.
Right. Where should you put your money?
You want to allocate your resources to platforms and channels where your target audience is most likely to be found.
Aligning your advertising and content distribution strategies with the primary traffic sources of relevant websites can dramatically improve the efficiency and effectiveness of your campaigns.
But here's a critical point. If you don't grasp this underlying financial pressure that many online media outlets face,
You're missing a key piece of the puzzle.
you might fundamentally misinterpret why a website covered your story in a particular way. You might not realize that their chosen angle or emphasis was driven more by the need to generate clicks than by a purely objective assessment of the facts.
A lack of awareness regarding these economic factors can lead to significant misunderstandings about the motivations behind media coverage and potentially result in inaccurate interpretations of news reports.
You and your employees might also be more susceptible to wasting time and being misled by those ubiquitous clickbait articles, the ones with outrageous headlines that promise something the content simply can't deliver.
We've all clicked on them.
Yeah, it can be a real drain on productivity and can erode trust in online information generally.
Recognizing the common tactics employed in clickbait can help you and your team become more discerning consumers of online content and avoid wasting valuable time on low-quality or misleading information.
And if you're creating your own online content, you might mistakenly focus solely on making it high quality, but neglect the crucial aspect of making it discoverable and engaging enough for people to actually click on it and read it.
The "if you build it, they will come" fallacy online.
Exactly. Even the most brilliant content won't have an impact if no one ever sees it.
In the digital age, discoverability is just as critical as content quality. Understanding how to attract clicks and drive engagement is essential for your content to achieve its intended impact.
So how do companies in the USA actively try to play this game? How do they strategically aim to generate those valuable clicks and views for their own content or for websites that feature them? What are the tactics?
Several common and often sophisticated strategies are employed. It's a constant effort.
Like SEO?
Yes, one major focus is on optimizing their content for search engines, or SEO. They want their website and their articles to rank highly in Google and other search engine results pages,
Top of the list.
because that drives a massive amount of organic traffic to websites that host their content, which in turn helps those websites earn more advertising revenue. Search engine optimization is a fundamental pillar of online visibility. Achieving a prominent position in search results is a primary driver of traffic for the vast majority of websites.
Okay, SEO is huge. What else? Viral content.
Absolutely. Many businesses also actively try to create what's commonly referred to as viral content, whether it's entertaining videos, engaging quizzes, insightful articles, or anything else that has a high propensity to be shared widely across social media platforms.
Something that catches fire.
Right. When something goes viral, it generates a huge surge in clicks and page views for the websites that host or report on it. Content that evokes strong emotions, offers unique and compelling insights, or provides high entertainment value has a significantly greater potential to be shared extensively across social platforms, leading to a substantial influx of traffic.
And then there's affiliate marketing, right?
And then there's the prevalent practice of affiliate marketing, yes, where websites partner with companies to promote their products or services. If a reader clicks on a special affiliate link and subsequently makes a purchase, the website earns a commission.
So they have a direct incentive to push certain products.
Exactly. This creates a direct financial incentive for websites to feature and promote certain products. Affiliate marketing is a widespread monetization strategy where content creators earn revenue by recommending products or services and driving sales through the use of unique tracking links.
Now, what are some common mistakes that competitors make when they don't fully understand or effectively utilize these online revenue models and traffic generation strategies? Where are they falling short?
They often struggle significantly with gaining online visibility and audience engagement. It's quite apparent.
No, so?
For instance, they might have truly innovative products or valuable services, but their online content remains incredibly difficult to find because they've completely neglected the fundamentals of SEO.
Buried on page 10 of Google.
Precisely. This translates directly into fewer clicks and significantly less visibility for any websites that might potentially cover them. Without effective search engine optimization, even the most exceptional content can become lost in the vastness of the internet, failing to attract the organic traffic it deserves.
Okay, poor SEO. What else? Boring content.
They might also create content that is informative and well-researched, but lacks that essential element of engagement or shareability. It doesn't capture attention, doesn't evoke any strong emotions, and doesn't give people a compelling reason to pass it on to their networks.
Doesn't connect.
Right. Resulting in low engagement and fewer opportunities for media mentions or organic sharing. Content that doesn't effectively resonate with the target audience or isn't strategically optimized for sharing is likely to languish, missing out on valuable reach and amplification opportunities.
And just not understanding advertising.
And a surprisingly common oversight is not really grasping how online advertising models function, things like pay-per-click, PPC advertising or impression-based advertising. This lack of understanding can lead to wasted marketing budgets and ineffective online campaigns.
Throwing money away.
Essentially, yes. A fundamental lack of understanding regarding online advertising metrics and strategies can result in inefficient spending and ultimately poor campaign performance, hindering their ability to effectively compete for online attention.
So for you, how can you leverage this understanding of online revenue models to your own advantage in your business or professional endeavors? How do you use this knowledge?
The key is to adopt a strategic mindset and to think somewhat like an online publisher yourself when creating and disseminating information. Put that hat on.
Exactly. When you create your own online content, whether it's blog posts, social media updates, or video content, really put yourself in the shoes of your audience and think critically about what will genuinely make them want to click on it and share it with others.
Think like the reader.
Craft strong, clear headlines that immediately pique their curiosity and clearly communicate the value proposition of your content. Focus on creating content that is either exceptionally interesting, genuinely useful, or evokes some kind of emotional response.
That emotional hook.
While you never want to compromise your integrity with misleading tactics, understanding that online media relies on engagement can help you tailor your approach to be more discoverable and impactful, ultimately increasing your visibility and influence.
It's about finding that crucial intersection where valuable, high-quality content meets effective presentation and strategic distribution, all while recognizing the underlying economic realities that shape the online media landscape. It's navigating that complex space effectively.
All right, buckle up because we're moving into some potentially more unsettling territory as we delve into secret hashtag 4, the tricks they use to grab your attention.
Yes. This section really delves into some of the more manipulative and ethically questionable aspects of online content creation that Ryan Holiday exposes in his book. This is where it gets a bit dark.
That's right. And trust me, I'm lying. He provides a first-hand account of some of the actual methods that media manipulators have used and continue to use to gain attention and drive engagement, sometimes with a blatant disregard for truth or accuracy.
He names names, essentially.
He does. This includes tactics like offering outright bribes to bloggers to cover certain stories, strategically telling specific audiences exactly what they want to hear, regardless of its factual basis.
Playing to the choir.
Creating content that is specifically designed to spread rapidly and trigger strong emotional responses, and, of course, crafting those irresistible, often sensational headlines that we've already touched upon.
These tactics often exploit inherent psychological biases and deeply ingrained emotional triggers to maximize audience engagement and the potential for virality. Pushing buttons.
Now, here's why understanding these sometimes unsavory tactics can actually be incredibly beneficial for you and your business. It's not just academic.
Awareness is the critical first step towards both defense and, interestingly, the ethical application of attention-grabbing principles.
How so?
Well, for one, you can become significantly more aware of when you yourself are being targeted by these kinds of manipulative marketing tactics.
Recognizing the playbook.
Exactly. Whether it's from competitors attempting to gain an unfair advantage in the marketplace or just general online news that seems almost too outrageous or emotionally charged to be credible, recognizing these common patterns of manipulation can empower you to become a more discerning consumer of information and less susceptible to being swayed by potentially misleading narratives.
And you can use these principles ethically.
You can also learn how to make your own marketing and communication efforts more effective by understanding and ethically applying some of these underlying principles of attention.
Yeah.
You certainly don't need to resort to lies or bribery.
Hopefully not.
But grasping what fundamentally makes people pay attention and share content can help you craft more compelling and engaging messages that focus on genuine interest and value rather than outright deception. It's about understanding the core drivers of human attention and engagement, and then applying those principles in a way that is both authentic and provides genuine value to your target audience, fostering a deeper connection rather than exploiting vulnerabilities.
Indefensively.
And crucially, you can become much more vigilant and prepared to defend against potential smear campaigns or negative stories that might be using these manipulative tactics to spread false or damaging information about your business, your brand, or your industry.
Seeing it coming.
Knowing the common playbook of these manipulators can give you a significant advantage in mounting an effective defense. Anticipating and readily identifying manipulative tactics in negative campaigns allows for a more strategic and timely response to effectively protect your brand's reputation and counter false narratives.
But if you don't understand these common attention-grabbing tricks, What's the risk?
Well, you could be far more easily fooled by misleading marketing campaigns from competitors, or you might fail to recognize when they're actively attempting to damage your reputation through the use of manipulative online tactics. A lack of awareness in this area leaves you significantly more vulnerable.
And your own marketing might suffer.
You might also continue to rely on very traditional and perhaps somewhat outdated marketing methods and fail to effectively capture the attention of your target audience in the increasingly crowded and noisy online space,
Just shouting into the void.
simply because you're not utilizing any of the techniques that are actually effective at cutting through the constant barrage of information. In today's hyper-competitive attention economy, relying solely on traditional marketing approaches can leave you struggling to gain necessary visibility and engagement against competitors who are more adept at capturing online attention, even if through less ethical means.
And the risk of accidentally using them yourself.
And there's also a potential risk of unknowingly employing some of these manipulative tactics yourself, perhaps in a misguided attempt to generate attention for your business, which could ultimately backfire and severely damage your brand's image and erode customer trust in the long run. Unintentional or ill-advised use of manipulative tactics, even without malicious intent, can significantly damage trust and erode your brand's hard-earned reputation, leading to long-term negative consequences.
So, what are some of the common strategies that companies in the USA utilize to grab attention online, sometimes treading dangerously close to or even crossing that ethical line of manipulation? What does this look like in practice?
We observe a wide range of techniques being employed, some more subtle than others.
Okay, like social media.
Creating highly shareable social media content is a big one. Visually stunning images, emotionally resonant videos, and posts that tap into trending topics are all designed to be easily passed along to friends and followers.
Things that make you feel something.
Exactly. Content that evokes strong emotions, is visually compelling, or effectively capitalizes on current social trends has a significantly higher likelihood of being shared extensively across various social media platforms.
And headlines again.
And then there are those meticulously crafted, click-worthy headlines and video thumbnails that we've discussed before. Significant time and resources are often invested in crafting these elements to entice users to click through to the content,
Even if the content doesn't quite match up.
even if the actual content doesn't always fully deliver on the often exaggerated promise of the headline. The strategic art of crafting compelling and intriguing headlines and thumbnails is absolutely crucial for driving initial traffic and engagement in a highly saturated online environment.
And targeted ads.
And of course, there's the pervasive use of targeted advertising based on detailed user interests and online behavior. Companies gather vast amounts of data to show people ads and content that they are highly likely to be interested in.
Following you around the internet.
Essentially, yes, effectively telling them exactly what they want to hear based on their digital footprint. Data-driven advertising allows for highly personalized and targeted messaging, significantly increasing the chances of capturing the attention of very specific audience segments.
Now, what are some common mistakes that competitors often make by not effectively utilizing these attention-grabbing strategies, even the more ethical ones? Where do they fall flat?
They frequently struggle to gain traction and achieve necessary online visibility. It's often quite stark.
How so? Just boring.
Their marketing materials might be factually accurate and informative, but they can often be perceived as bland, uninspired, and ultimately fail to capture the attention of their intended audience in the incredibly crowded online landscape. In a highly saturated digital environment, content that doesn't possess visual appeal or emotional resonance is highly likely to be overlooked and fail to make a meaningful impact.
Weak headlines, too.
They might also utilize weak or unclear headlines on their valuable online content, resulting in significantly lower click-through rates and fewer reads, even if the content itself offers substantial value to the reader. Poor headline writing is a significant and often overlooked barrier to content consumption and engagement in the fast-paced online world.
And ignoring trends.
And they might completely ignore current social media trends and what's currently capturing the public's attention online, missing out on huge opportunities to connect with their target audience in relevant and timely ways. Failing to adapt to and engage with current social media trends and online conversations can lead to significant missed opportunities for reaching a broad and actively engaged audience.
So for you, how can you effectively use these principles to achieve success in your business without resorting to harmful or unethical manipulation tactics? How do you walk that line?
The key is to consistently focus on creating genuine value for your audience and connecting with them in an authentic and meaningful way. Keep that as your North Star.
Exactly. Take the time to truly understand what will genuinely excite and interest your target audience. Craft your marketing messages and headlines in a way that immediately grabs their attention and speaks directly to their specific needs, desires, and pain points.
Solve their problem, basically.
However, always prioritize delivering real, tangible value and being genuinely interesting and helpful, rather than resorting to outright lies, misleading claims, or deceptive tactics. Build lasting trust and foster genuine engagement by being relevant and valuable, not by employing cheap tricks that will ultimately erode your credibility.
Ethical engagement is paramount for long-term success. Focus on deeply understanding your audience's genuine needs and then creating compelling content that truly resonates with them in an authentic and trustworthy manner. That's the sustainable path.
Right, we're now moving into what can be a more sobering discussion with secret #5, when things go wrong. Really wrong.
Yeah, this section highlights the very real potential for significant negative consequences in the hyper-connected and rapidly moving online environment. Things can escalate quickly.
This is where Ryan Holiday vividly described how the incredible speed at which information can spread online, coupled with a frequent lack of thorough and responsible fact-checking, can lead to genuinely serious problems.
Real-world impact.
Absolutely. Things like the swift and widespread dissemination of misinformation, online pile-ons and reputation attacks, and even what he chillingly refers to as toxic blogging and cyber warfare.
Strong terms.
When the primary emphasis is on being the first to break a story and racking up clicks, accuracy and a sense of social responsibility can often take a back seat, and that can have very tangible and damaging real-world consequences for both individuals and businesses.
The inherent immediacy and vast reach of the internet can amplify both positive and negative information with astonishing speed, and the absence of traditional journalistic gatekeepers can unfortunately sometimes lead to the unchecked and rapid spread of falsehoods and damaging narratives. The guardrails aren't always there.
Now, for you and your business, understanding this potential for things to go seriously wrong online is absolutely crucial for effective preparedness and risk management. You need to be ready.
Proactive awareness is an essential first step in mitigating potential online risks. You can't bury your head in the sand.
Knowing just how quickly negative information, regardless of its accuracy, can propagate across the internet helps you understand the critical need to be prepared for potential public relations crises.
The dreaded PR crisis.
And to have well-defined strategies in place to respond effectively and swiftly should such a situation arise.
In today's digital landscape, every business, regardless of its size or industry, needs to be proactively prepared to effectively manage its online reputation and address potential crises promptly and strategically to minimize potential damage. It's not just for the big guys anymore.
It also sharply underscores the paramount importance of being proactive in consistently protecting your own online reputation. This involves diligently monitoring what is being said about your brand across various online channels.
Keeping an ear to the ground.
And having a clear plan to address any false or negative information before it has the opportunity to spiral completely out of control and inflict significant damage.
Vigilant and continuous monitoring of social media and online news for mentions of your brand, coupled with a proactive engagement strategy, are key to safeguarding your brand's online image and effectively addressing negative narratives before they gain significant traction and cause lasting harm.
And finally, fully understanding the inherent dangers of unchecked and often unverified online information should strongly encourage you to be exceptionally ethical and responsible in all of your own online communications.
Don't add to the problem.
Exactly. You certainly don't want to inadvertently contribute to the pervasive problem of spreading misinformation.
Maintaining the highest standards of ethical communication and demonstrating an unwavering commitment to accuracy in all your online interactions are absolutely crucial for building and maintaining trust in the digital age.
But if you don't fully grasp this potential for online crises to erupt and spread rapidly, what happens then?
Your business could suffer severe and potentially long-lasting reputation damage from a false or negative story that gains significant traction online, and you are ill-prepared to effectively handle it.
Caught flat-footed.
A lack of adequate preparedness for online crises can lead to significant and enduring damage to your brand's reputation, customer trust, and ultimately, your bottom line.
And loss of trust.
You're also highly likely to lose the hard-earned trust of your customers and stakeholders if they perceive your brand as being associated with the spread of misinformation or unethical online practices. Trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to repair. Consumer trust is an invaluable asset for any business, and any association with misinformation or perceived unethical practices can erode that trust quickly and severely, leading to significant long-term consequences.
And legal issues.
And in the most serious scenarios, actively spreading false or deliberately misleading information yourself could even lead to significant legal repercussions for your business. Responsible and accurate communication is not merely an ethical consideration, it's also a fundamental matter of legal compliance in many jurisdictions.
So what are some of the key strategies that proactive companies in the USA are currently using to try and navigate this potentially treacherous online terrain and mitigate these risks? How do they protect themselves?
We observe a strong focus on continuous monitoring, robust preparedness planning, and a commitment to radical transparency. It's a multi-pronged approach.
Monitoring first.
Actively and continuously monitoring social media platforms and online news outlets for any and all mentions of their brand, their specific products or services, and even their broader industry is a critical first step. They need to have a real-time understanding of what's being said about them.
Knowing the chatter.
Continuous and comprehensive monitoring of all relevant online channels is absolutely essential for the early detection of potential issues and for gaining a clear understanding of the ongoing public conversation surrounding your brand.
And having a plan.
Larger organizations often have dedicated public relations and crisis communication teams in place, whose primary responsibility is to rapidly respond to any negative press or online attacks and to manage the situation in a calm, strategic, and effective manner.
The fire drill.
Exactly. Having a clearly defined and well-rehearsed crisis communication plan in place, along with a dedicated and experienced team to execute it, is absolutely crucial for minimizing potential damage during a negative online event.
And being transparent.
And increasingly, businesses are prioritizing thorough fact-checking in all their external communications and striving for greater overall transparency in their operations to proactively build trust with their stakeholders.
Building goodwill.
And, in turn, hopefully prevent these kinds of crises from erupting in the first place. A strong and unwavering commitment to accuracy in all external communications, coupled with a genuine dedication to transparency in business practices, can significantly reduce the likelihood of negative situations arising and foster stronger, more resilient relationships with customers and the wider public.
Now, what are some of the common mistakes that competitors often make when they don't have these crucial strategies and protocols in place? How do they mess up?
They frequently find themselves reacting too late, ineffectively, and often in a state of panic. It's not pretty.
Like ignoring the problem.
One prevalent mistake is simply ignoring negative online mentions, operating under the false hope that they will somehow just disappear on their own. However, in the relentless online world, this rarely happens.
It festers.
More often than not, it merely allows the negative narrative to take root and spread even further unchecked. Ignoring negative feedback or online discussions about your brand can be a critical error, allowing misinformation to proliferate unchallenged and potentially cause significant and lasting damage to your reputation.
Or responding badly.
When a problem does eventually surface and demand attention, they might be slow to formulate a response or handle the situation in a clumsy and ill-considered manner,
Making it worse.
which can significantly exacerbate the initial damage and make a full recovery much more challenging and time-consuming. A delayed, poorly planned, or ineffectively executed crisis response can dramatically amplify negative consequences and substantially prolong the entire recovery process, potentially causing irreparable harm.
And lack of transparency.
And some companies make the critical error of attempting to conceal or downplay negative information, demonstrating a distinct lack of transparency in their communications, which can often backfire spectacularly and further erode whatever remaining trust their audience may have had in them.
The cover-up is worse than the crime, kind of thing.
Attempts to suppress or conceal negative information are almost always counterproductive, often leading to a significant backlash and further damaging your credibility and reputation in the long run.
So for you, the listener, how can you apply this understanding to safeguard your own ventures and navigate these potential online pitfalls? What's the practical advice?
The core principles are to be consistently proactive, thoroughly prepared, and unwaveringly ethical in your entire online presence and all your communications. It's about diligence.
Be consistently vigilant about your online reputation. Develop a basic, actionable plan outlining how you would address negative feedback or the spread of misinformation should it ever arise.
Have that playbook ready.
Always prioritize absolute accuracy and maintain the highest standards of ethical communication in all of your marketing efforts and public statements. Always remember that in the digital realm, trust is an incredibly valuable and equally fragile asset that must be diligently protected.
Building and diligently maintaining trust through transparent, accurate, and ethical communication is your single best defense against the potential pitfalls and negative consequences that can arise in the dynamic online information landscape. It's your shield.
We're nearing the end of our deep dive now, moving on to secret #6. Oops, did they get it wrong? Maybe not. This section tackles the often murky and complicated world of online corrections.
Ah, yes. This brings up a really crucial point about the fundamental reliability and the long-term impact of information that circulates online. Does a correction actually correct anything?
Exactly. Ryan Holiday discusses what he cleverly terms the myth of corrections. His central argument is that even when online news outlets do acknowledge and make mistakes, and let's be realistic, given the incredible speed at which they operate, errors are inevitably going to occur.
It's bound to happen.
They aren't always particularly prompt or effective at issuing corrections in a way that truly reverses the initial impact of the error.
The correction gets buried.
Right. In the fast-paced online environment, a sensational headline or a compelling, even if ultimately incorrect, story can garner a massive amount of initial attention and lodge itself firmly in the public consciousness long before a comparatively quiet and often overlooked correction is ever issued.
The inherent speed and potential for viral spread of online news often mean that retractions and corrections struggle to gain the same level of visibility or have the same lasting impact as the initial and often more sensational misinformation. The first impression sticks.
Now, for your business, understanding this somewhat disheartening reality about online corrections has some significant and important implications that you need to be aware of.
It sharply underscores the critical importance of striving for absolute accuracy in all your communications right from the very beginning. Get it right the first time.
If your business happens to be the subject of an inaccurate news story circulating online, you simply cannot afford to rely solely on a subsequent correction to magically undo the potential damage to your hard-earned reputation.
Don't count on the correction cavalry.
The initial incorrect information may well continue to circulate across various online platforms and unfortunately continue to influence public perception for a considerable period, potentially long after a correction has even been issued.
The persistent and lingering effect of misinformation can be quite significant, even after a formal correction has been officially published. The initial, often more compelling narrative frequently leaves a more indelible impression on the public consciousness.
This reality also strongly emphasizes the value of being intensely proactive in ensuring that your story is accurate and correctly represented in the first place.
That's rebunking almost.
It is far more effective and beneficial to invest the necessary time and resources to ensure accuracy in your initial communications with media outlets than to have to rely on a potentially ineffective correction later on down the line.
Prevention is unequivocally better than cure in this context. Diligently striving for absolute accuracy in all of your initial messaging and information dissemination is paramount.
And it further highlights the long-term value of consistently building and maintaining a strong reputation for both accuracy and unwavering reliability in all of your own communications,
Building that trust bank.
so that you hopefully avoid the need to issue any corrections in the first place.
Cultivating a strong reputation for accuracy and reliability builds a significant reservoir of trust with your audience and substantially reduces the likelihood of errors that would necessitate a correction.
But if you don't fully grasp the inherent limitations and often muted impact of online corrections, what's the danger there?
You might operate under a false sense of security, naively believing that if an error is made, a simple correction will effectively and completely fix everything with minimal, lasting repercussions.
They'll just fix it later.
Underestimating the potential long-term impact of misinformation, even after a correction is issued, can unfortunately lead to a somewhat complacent approach to both accuracy in initial communications and proactive crisis management.
And the credibility hit might linger.
You might also significantly underestimate the potential for long-term damage to your company's overall credibility, even if a news outlet does eventually issue a formal correction. That initial error can still plant a seed of doubt and negative perception in the minds of consumers that can be difficult to fully eradicate.
That lingering doubt.
Even when a correction is successfully obtained, the initial error can still inflict lasting damage on consumer trust and create a negative perception that can be incredibly challenging and time-consuming to fully overcome.
And you could waste time chasing corrections.
And you could, unfortunately, end up wasting a significant amount of valuable time and limited resources diligently trying to get corrections published, only to discover that they ultimately have a minimal impact on the overall prevailing public perception of your business online.
Spinning your wheels.
Focusing solely on securing corrections from media outlets may not always be the most effective allocation of your limited resources if the correction itself doesn't reach a significant portion of the audience that consumed the original misinformation or meaningfully change the established narrative.
So, what are some of the key strategies that responsible and forward-thinking companies in the USA are implementing regarding accuracy in their communications and the handling of corrections when they become necessary? How do the smart ones handle this?
A steadfast commitment to meticulous thoroughness and proactive communication is absolutely key. It's about rigor.
Like internal fact-checking.
They often implement really robust and multi-layered internal fact-checking processes for absolutely all of their marketing materials, press releases, and any other form of public statement to proactively try and prevent errors from ever occurring in the first place.
Dotting the I's, crossing the T's.
Establishing and diligently enforcing robust internal fact-checking procedures across all public-facing communications is essential for minimizing the initial occurrence of inaccuracies.
And reaching out directly.
If they do happen to identify an error in a news report or article concerning their company, they will typically take a proactive approach and directly reach out to the news outlet to formally request a correction and provide thoroughly verified accurate information.
Not just waiting.
Rather than passively hoping that the outlet will independently identify and rectify the error on their own, prompt and direct communication with relevant media outlets to specifically address any identified inaccuracies is absolutely crucial for seeking timely and effective corrections.
And setting the record straight themselves.
And in those instances where a significant error persists despite their efforts, or if the news outlet proves to be unresponsive to their requests for a correction, companies might even feel compelled to issue their own clear and public statements to definitively clarify the facts and ensure that the accurate information is readily available to the wider public.
Taking control of the narrative.
Taking proactive ownership and issuing clear public statements to directly address significant and uncorrected inaccuracies can be a necessary measure to effectively control the narrative and protect your brand's reputation.
Now, what are some of the common mistakes that competitors often make in this critical area of accuracy and corrections? Where do they stumble?
They frequently fail to adequately prioritize accuracy in their own communications and often handle necessary corrections in a reactive and ineffective manner. It's often sloppy.
Rushing things out.
Some, unfortunately, rush to publish marketing materials and other public statements without implementing proper and thorough fact-checking protocols, which can unfortunately lead to those initial errors that then require media outlets to potentially issue corrections. A lack of rigor and thoroughness in internal review and fact-checking processes can regrettably lead to the initial dissemination of inaccurate information, increasing the likelihood of requiring subsequent corrections.
Not monitoring coverage.
They might also fail to actively and consistently monitor for any inaccuracies in news reports or articles concerning their company or their broader industry, remaining unaware of potentially damaging errors that are circulating publicly.
Ignorance isn't bliss here.
Failing to implement diligent and ongoing monitoring of media coverage leaves them vulnerable to missing critical opportunities to identify and promptly address inaccuracies that could harm their reputation.
And just relying on the outlet.
And some companies make the significant mistake of solely relying on the media outlet to eventually issue a correction, without taking any further proactive steps themselves to ensure that the accurate information effectively reaches their key stakeholders and the wider public.
Passive approach again.
Solely depending on media outlets to issue necessary corrections can often be insufficient. Proactive and independent measures are frequently required to effectively counter misinformation and ensure the accurate information is widely disseminated.
So for you, our listener, how can you effectively apply this understanding of online corrections and the importance of accuracy to your own path to success? What's the action item?
The core principle is to consistently prioritize absolute accuracy in all of your communications and to take full responsibility for the information that you disseminate. Own your words.
Absolutely. Always double-check and verify all of your facts and figures before you publish anything online, whether it's a simple social media post or a formal press release. Be proactive in promptly communicating accurate information to media outlets if they reach out to you for comment.
Be prepared.
And if an error does unfortunately occur in your own communications, own up to it quickly, transparently, and directly. Don't just passively rely on others to fix your mistakes. Take full ownership of the situation and actively work to ensure that the correct information is readily available and widely understood.
Maintaining an unwavering commitment to accuracy and radical transparency in all your communications is paramount for building and sustaining long-term trust and significantly strengthening your reputation as a reliable and credible source of information. It's foundational.
Finally, we've reached our seventh and final secret: becoming a super smart newsreader. This last part is all about empowering you, the listener, with the knowledge we've covered today.
Yes, this final section is dedicated to cultivating essential media literacy and critical thinking skills that will serve you well in the digital age. It's about equipping the individual.
Exactly. Ryan Holiday's book ultimately encourages us to adopt a more critical and informed approach to consuming online news. He even provides specific and practical advice on how to approach reading blogs and online articles with a healthy and necessary dose of skepticism,
A critical eye.
always considering the various potential biases, hidden agendas, and manipulative tactics that might be at play. Comprehending the underlying tricks and the inherent pressures of online media ultimately empowers you to become a much smarter, more discerning, and far more resilient reader of online information.
Developing strong critical evaluation skills is absolutely essential for effectively navigating the increasingly complex and often overwhelming world of online information, and for making sound judgments based on what you read. It's a core skill now.
Now, for your business, cultivating this kind of critical thinking and strong media literacy skills within your team is incredibly valuable and can lead to significant advantages.
It can lead to more informed and strategic decision-making processes and more effective risk mitigation strategies across the board.
You and your team will be significantly better equipped to accurately evaluate the credibility of online information that could potentially impact your critical business decisions,
Seeing through the noise.
ranging from identifying emerging market trends to understanding your competitors' activities and strategies. The fundamental ability to effectively discern credible and reliable information from the overwhelming noise of the internet is absolutely crucial for making sound strategic decisions that will benefit your organization. You can also learn to effectively distinguish between genuine, sustainable trends and mere manufactured online hype,
Separating signal from noise.
saving you and your company from potentially wasting valuable resources by chasing after things that ultimately aren't truly significant or impactful. Cultivating strong critical evaluation skills helps you accurately identify real, lasting opportunities and effectively avoid being misled by superficial or short-lived online trends that lack a solid foundation. And ultimately, you and your employees will be far less likely to be deceived by false or deliberately misleading information that circulates online, thereby protecting your business from potential scams, misinformation campaigns, and other online threats.
Strong media literacy serves as a vital defense mechanism against a wide range of online scams. The pervasive spread of misinformation and potential reputational damage stemming from the consumption of unreliable information is like an immune system.
But if you don't actively develop and hone these crucial critical reading skills, what's the downside?
You could unfortunately end up making poorly informed business decisions based on inaccurate or intentionally biased online reports and analyses. Relying on unverified or demonstrably biased information found online can unfortunately lead to fundamentally flawed strategic decisions with potentially serious negative consequences for your business.
Chasing ghosts.
You might also inadvertently waste significant resources by chasing after fleeting and ultimately unsubstantiated online trends that aren't actually grounded in any real-world data or analysis. Investing valuable resources based on fleeting online hype rather than sound data and thorough analysis can unfortunately lead to wasted capital and missed opportunities for more strategic investments.
And just being more vulnerable.
And you and your business could unfortunately become significantly more vulnerable to sophisticated online scams and well-orchestrated misinformation campaigns that could have serious and damaging financial or reputational consequences for your organization. A lack of well-developed critical evaluation skills significantly increases your susceptibility to falling victim to increasingly sophisticated online threats and deceptive practices, potentially leading to significant financial and reputational harm.
So, what are some of the proactive ways that forward-thinking companies in the USA are currently trying to foster this essential level of media literacy within their organizations? How are they building this skill?
We are observing a growing emphasis on providing targeted training and actively cultivating a company-wide culture of rigorous information verification. It's becoming a priority.
Training programs.
Some companies are actually investing in providing dedicated media literacy training programs for their employees to equip them with the necessary skills to critically evaluate the information they encounter in the online world. Investing in comprehensive media literacy training programs empowers employees to become more discerning and responsible consumers of online information, ultimately benefiting both themselves and the organization.
And encouraging fact-checking.
They're also actively encouraging and reinforcing a company-wide culture of always rigorously verifying information from multiple credible sources before sharing it either internally within the organization or externally with the wider public,
Making it the norm.
thereby promoting a strong sense of shared responsibility for information accuracy. Actively promoting and nurturing a strong internal culture of thorough fact-checking and cross-verification helps to significantly prevent the unintentional spread of misinformation within the organization and to external stakeholders.
And bringing in experts.
And some businesses are even proactively consulting with recognized media experts to gain a deeper understanding of the increasingly complex online information landscape and to develop more effective strategies for navigating it successfully and responsibly. Seeking expert guidance and insights from media professionals can provide invaluable perspectives on the ever-evolving dynamics of online media and help organizations develop more effective strategies for both proactive engagement and comprehensive risk management.
Now, what are some of the common mistakes that competitors often make in this crucial area of fostering media literacy and critical thinking? What are the pitfalls?
They frequently exhibit a noticeable lack of critical evaluation skills and overall awareness regarding the complexities of online information. It's often a blind spot.
Like acting on bad info.
They might, for instance, make significant business decisions based solely on unverified information they've encountered on the internet, which can be an incredibly risky and potentially damaging approach to strategic planning. Making critical strategic decisions based on unsubstantiated or poorly sourced online information can unfortunately lead to significant errors in judgment and potentially severe negative consequences for the business.
Spreading bad info themselves.
They could also inadvertently spread misinformation themselves, either internally amongst their employees or externally to their customers and the wider public, simply because they failed to take the necessary time and effort to properly check the accuracy of the information before sharing it.
Oops.
Unintentionally sharing inaccurate or misleading information can seriously damage your brand's credibility and unfortunately contribute to the broader societal problem of misinformation.
And ignoring red flags.
And they might unfortunately completely ignore the common red flags that are often clearly present in manipulated or demonstrably unreliable online content, making them significantly more susceptible to various online scams and increasingly sophisticated misinformation campaigns. Failing to recognize and heed the readily apparent warning signs of unreliable or manipulated online content can leave both individuals and organizations highly vulnerable to various forms of online deception and misinformation.
So for you, as an individual navigating this complex digital world, how can you actively work towards becoming a super smart newsreader and a more discerning consumer of online information? What can people do starting today?
The most important step is to consciously cultivate a consistent habit of critical thinking and maintain a healthy and appropriate level of skepticism when encountering information online. Don't just accept things at face value.
Absolutely. When you're actively reading news and other information online, always take a moment to critically consider the original source.
Who wrote this? Why?
Is it a reputable organization with a well-established history of fact-checking and journalistic integrity? Actively look for concrete evidence and supporting data to substantiate the claims that are being made in the article or post.
Show me the evidence.
Be particularly wary of sensational headlines and emotionally charged language, as these are often used to manipulate your attention and bypass your critical thinking.
If it sounds too outrageous, maybe it is.
And always remember the fundamental principle that just because something is shared widely across social media platforms doesn't automatically equate to it being factually accurate.
Virality does not equal truth.
The more critically and thoughtfully you engage with the vast amount of online information you encounter, the better equipped you'll be to make sound decisions, both in your personal life and in your professional endeavors.
Developing a consistent habit of thoughtfully questioning sources, actively seeking out diverse perspectives on important issues, and diligently verifying information through multiple credible outlets is absolutely essential for becoming a truly well-informed and resilient consumer of online news and information in today's digital age. It takes effort, but it's worth it.
And that brings us to the conclusion of our deep dive into the 7 sneaky ways that internet news can often work behind the scenes, all inspired by the insightful and at times unsettling perspectives shared in Ryan Holiday's book, Trust Me, I'm Lying.
We sincerely hope that this comprehensive exploration has provided you with some genuinely valuable insights into the often unseen mechanisms that drive the dissemination of information in the online world. Hopefully, it demystified things a bit.
We truly hope you've gained some valuable and actionable knowledge today that will empower you to navigate the complex online world with a more critical, informed, and ultimately more resilient perspective.
That resilience is key.
Whether you're making crucial business decisions or simply striving to stay accurately informed about the ever-evolving world around you, always remember, as we've thoroughly discussed, that not everything you encounter online is necessarily what it initially appears to be.
Understanding these often subtle yet powerful underlying dynamics empowers you to become a more discerning and effective consumer of online information and to make significantly more informed choices in both your professional and your personal life.
So, as you scroll through your various news feeds in the coming week, take a conscious moment to think critically about what you're seeing. Be mindful of those sneaky ways we've discussed in detail today.
Keep these secrets in mind.
And always remember that your individual ability to discern truth and accuracy in a world that is increasingly saturated with information is truly one of your greatest and most valuable assets.
It's about consciously cultivating a more mindful and deliberate approach to your consumption of online information and actively recognizing the shared responsibility we all have in promoting greater accuracy and fostering critical thinking within the digital sphere. Be part of the solution.
Hey, you ever find yourself scrolling through your news feed and just pausing, thinking, is this actually what's happening, or is there like something else going on behind the scenes?
Oh, definitely.
It can feel like we're drinking from a fire hose of information
Right.
and figuring out what's true. Well, it can be a real head scratcher.
It's a valid question. I mean, the digital age has given us just unprecedented access to information, but yeah, that also means we're navigating a much more complex and sometimes murky landscape.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today on the deep dive. We've got a fascinating guide for our exploration, the book, Trust Me, I'm Lying, by Ryan Holiday.
Holiday, yes.
Now, this isn't your typical media analysis. Holiday used to be a media manipulator. He was the guy pulling some of those strings.
Right, he was inside the machine.
So think of this as us getting an insider's look at the, let's say, sneaky ways the internet news ecosystem really functions, straight from someone who was, in the engine room.
It offers a uniquely insightful perspective, doesn't it? Holiday's experience allows him to illuminate the often unseen mechanisms that drive online news, revealing the underlying pressures and tactics at play.
Exactly.
Understanding these dynamics is just essential for anyone wanting to be a savvy consumer of digital information.
Absolutely. Because whether you're prepping for a crucial business meeting, trying to get a handle on a rapidly evolving field, or just, naturally curious about the world around you, being able to critically assess online information is more vital than ever. So, over our time together today, we're going to unpack 7 key secrets based on Holiday's firsthand experiences and observations. Consider it your shortcut to understanding the inner workings of the internet news machine.